Welcome to FM Corner. I'm Danny Koontz. Our episode of FM Corner is brought to you by Windy City Equipment as our sponsor. Today, my guest is Joe Fairley. Joe is the VP of Business Development for Laser Facility Management, and really pleased to have him on the show. Joe, thanks for taking the time to speak today.
Oh, Danny, thanks for asking me.
Let's start with, as I usually do, talk a little bit about your career, kind of where it started to where it is now.
Yeah, Danny, you don't have enough time on this show for this, okay? You don't. But, so we'll try to shrink it down as much as possible. But, hey, I was a restaurant geek growing up, and first job out of college, my undergrad, went to work for Disney. Literally showed up at their doorstep and they wouldn't hire me. So I went to their human resources department every day for 3 months until they got sick of seeing my face. And finally they hired me. And it went from there. Worked for Disney, ended up then in the hotel division, working for Hilton and then Marriott. And then, as all of us do, somehow we fall into facilities. That's how I like to say it. Somebody approached me one day, owned his own company, said that he wanted to grow his company. I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm in facilities." I said, "Well, I take care of hotels and restaurants. I guess I do too." And I was off from there. And that brought us 30 years hence.
It is funny, the number of people that I talked to, including myself. Facilities was never a career option, didn't even think about it. You just either happened to land at the right place at the right time, and someone kind of says, "Can you do it?" "Sure, I can do it." And you go figure it out. I mean, it's amazing the number of people, and everybody kind of has the same story. Like, "Did you want to be a facility manager?" "No, I had no idea what it was."
That's actually the first thing that I ask people when I meet them. I'm like, "Danny, how did you fall into facilities?" And so on. I love hearing those stories.
Sure. Joe, I was at Ruby Tuesday working in the warehouse and the commissary and going to school at UT. And they said, "Do you want to be the purchasing guy?" I'm like, "Sure." "What do you want me to purchase?" They told me. They said, "Can you do it?" I'm like, "How hard is it? You make a deal. I got it." You're young and stupid. You don't know any better. But a year later, they came and said, "You want to be the facility guy?" I'm like, "Wait a minute. I don't carry a tool belt and stuff. That's not me." And they're like, "No, we don't want you to do that. Just figure out who to call and how much it should cost. That's how you do it." "Okay, I'm your guy." I mean, it was simply that, So
And that's the fun. Honestly, that's part of the fun of our industry, is that we all come in from all of these different planets. Sure. and meet together somehow in the middle and try to figure it out.
Well, and I think part of that too is the openness to learn, because you don't know anything about it. You don't come in as a former person's been doing it 15, 20 years. No, okay, I'm brand new. I'll figure it out, but I'm also open to learning because I don't know. And I think that's critical for lots of folks.
No, definitely. Literally, before I had a real job, when I was a kid, my dad bought a hotel, and he bought it and handed me back then what was a box of keys for all of the hotel rooms. And he said, "I'm going away. I'll be away for a few months. Here's the hotel. Why don't you start it up and run it?" And I was 17.
There you go.
I figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you just got to go. That's a great story. Talk about your role at Laser Facility Management, kind of what you do and what you're accountable and responsible for.
The big picture is that I work for an entrepreneur, and it's an entrepreneur who was a client of mine back in 2013, 2014, in those years. He was an FM on the FM side of the world, and later on started his own facility services company, called me up on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm doing this. What are you doing?" And I said, "Sounds like I'm listening to you and a good news story." And It was that. I asked him, what do you want me to do? He said, help me grow this. And that's really what I do for Laser, is help them grow. Hopefully, I'm helping them grow in a smart manner. That's the idea.
And does that involve finding new customers, new opportunities? Is that part of it as well?
It's all marketing, all sales, biz dev, whatever you want to call it. When you look at your year and you want to put up that number, whatever that new number is,
sure,
he and I talk about it, and then I go figure it out.
Yeah, there you go. Great. What's the best part of the job for you?
Hands down. If I get to help somebody today, that's the best part of my job. I don't care what it is. It could be helping an internal person figure something out. It could be, that call that you get from a client saying, "Oh my God, Joe, I need help." It could be honestly something personal, in that I just figure out how to help someone. I do a lot of mentoring, so I have different programs that I belong to, and those opportunities, they're opportunities to learn for me and gain knowledge. But if I get to help someone, it's a win. I get to the end of my day and I think, all right, man, that's a winning day.
That it's funny that you said that about it. Last year at RIFMA, I had an old friend who had worked for Ruby Tuesday at the same time I did, and she was now working for a different company, and she had a new facility manager. And during their conversation, she's like, "You need to talk to somebody that's been doing this a while." She said, "Here's a name, here's a number. You call Danny and said, he's going to RIFMA, you're going to RIFMA. Make sure you find a time to meet." And so we did. We'd never met, and we had breakfast together. And he talked about being as a facility manager, getting beat up every day. And I said, well, this is not news, but let me explain to you. As a facility manager, you'll never do it fast enough, quick enough, cheap enough. Just accept that and understand that's kind of how it plays. And you're going to be judged by people who've never done the job that you do. It's like a baseball coach, and you're at home on social media blowing him up because he should have done this and that, and you've never coached it in your life. I mean, it's the way the business is. And I said something that when you just answered the question, it reminded me of that conversation. I said, you can get beat up every day. However, find that one person that you actually help today. Yeah. And if you can help one person every day, you're doing your job. Somebody that recognizes it, somebody in a panic and the restaurant's closed and the water heater's leaking, and that night you got a new water heater shipped across America and it got installed. Holy cow. And the next morning they were ready to open. And that guy or lady loves you today. Yeah. The next time they may not love you as much because you can't do it again, but today you help them out of a situation. And that's how you have to look at it, is celebrate little wins.
Absolutely. And know what you just said was, you may not meet their needs tomorrow. Like tomorrow, we're only as good as that one little moment, right? That one moment today when we help someone, and then the slate's clean again. It's like, how good are you going to be for that next moment? Right. And that's hard for some people to get used to, because you have to have kind of a tough exterior to last a long time in this industry and still smile, sure. Right? And not want to just blow your blow it all up. Yeah. It's something where you have to celebrate that little win, but then really quickly realize the next thing's going to be fired at you.
Sure, absolutely. Our former CEO I worked for used to see me in the hall, and he'd go, "All you do is spend my money." Oh. Right. And I said, "I'm the best spender of your money you'll ever hire." And that was my answer, because what else you gonna say? But yeah. I'm like, right. And I'm the best guy at managing your money that you'll have in facilities. Yeah. And he just kind of looked at me and like shake his head and he'd just go on. I was like, well, I've been doing it all these years. If I wasn't decent at it, there'd be somebody else sitting in this spot. I mean, at the end of the day, so that's great. What type of customer does Laser Facility do you seek out? What are the characteristics, for the people you want to do business with?
Well, the important thing I think for most companies is really understand what you're good at. Because if you're going to seek out a new customer, you want to be valuable to them. So you have to first internally kind of realize what you're good at. And I think that's part of what we learn in Laser every day. And we try to get our staff to learn is stay with what you're good at. Now we have two divisions, as many third-party management companies do. We have a repair and maintenance division, and then we have a projects group. I refer to it more as projects than construction, but it falls under the purchasing of most construction people. So each division, I try to get us to understand what we're good at. So for the facility side, instead of in the old days, we used to put out a list of 50 different trades that you could support. And the more things you had on your list, supposedly the more attractive you were. When I joined Brian and Laser, I said, I'd like to go in a different direction. What are the 5 things that you think that we're really good at? And just focus on that. So we went back to the trades and said, it's handyman, plumbing, electric, HVAC, and doors and locks. That's it. That's what we're good at. When someone asks you in the repair and maintenance division to do something different, don't say yes right away.
Sure.
Find out if you're the right fit for that geography, for that trade, whatever it is. On the project side, and I'm going to say this probably 5 times in this conversation, but learn how to say no. On the project side, Laser is I call it the splash and dash. They're the 2-day to 2-week projects. They're the type of projects that are more construction related. GCs don't want to slow down to do. That GC wants to move on to that next 6-digit or 7-digit project, whereas I'm perfectly fine with those $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, $50,000 projects or rollouts. Bring them on. And that's what we try to do with Laser is stay in your lane, stay in what you're good at, and always, again, learn how to say no when someone asks you to do something that's not your core.
Sure. Years and years ago, when Ruby Tuesday was a young company, and we had 1 or 2 major contractors that built our new buildings. And in the winter, we would slow down the building, obviously, because, certain areas of the country is very difficult to build in and so on. And so the leaders of those 2 companies came and said, hey, I got superintendents sitting around with nothing to do, but I got to pay them. So these remodel projects and these little 2-week projects that you're talking about, I want to use them, to do the work. Yeah. It's the worst thing we ever did. They build new buildings. That's all they want to do. They didn't want this kind of work, and they didn't give you a great effort because that's not what they do. The idea in theory sounded great. Okay, good. But once we got out there, we saw this is not their forte. It's not what they do, and they don't want to do it. And then the other point you made in speaking to a lot of folks that are working with third party and doing third party, the ability to say no is critical because they don't. And you're good at 3 or 4 things. And then your biggest customer comes and says, I want you to do this. And you don't do that. And you haven't done it. Okay. And then you take it on because yes is the appropriate answer, you believe. And then you get out there and you find out you're not good at it, or you sub it out, or you do whatever you got to do. And it turns out not to be good. And now all of a sudden you've got a black mark with a very important customer you have because you tried to do what they said, but you couldn't do it.
And how many times have you seen a disconnect between those who sell or develop new business and those who operate it?
Sure.
I want to bring my operations teams work that they can succeed at, work that they say, this is my lane. I love this work. Dropping something on them that you already know is going to be a stretch. And I'll give you one word that should be wiped out from our language: national. Should be wiped out from our language. I can do business in all 50 states this month and still not really consider myself national, because someone's going to have a portfolio that has locations in it in this great nation of ours that I can't service well for some reason. And so why would I ever use the word national? So people have seen almost every presentation that I've done, from Connects to RIFMA to Specs to point shows and so on. I tell them I'm taking the word out of our language.
Well, when you're doing that, I'll give you a two-worder you can take out too: self-perform. I never understood it. As a facility manager, it never made sense to me. I didn't care. I'm calling you, Joe, and I'm hiring you. You can use your cousin. You can use your brother-in-law. You can use anybody you want. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. If it doesn't go well, I'm holding you and the company accountable. I don't care who the person is. If you self-perform and the guy's name is Jimmy that does the work, it's no different to me. I don't know who Jimmy is. I just know he works for you. Well, if you hire a third party, fine. It doesn't matter. But some people are so caught up in, we only want self-perform. So you want a guy to drive 300 miles to go fix your stuff because he's a self-performer, as opposed to subbing it to someone that's in the same city. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Never has made sense. But some people, that that's what they enjoy or their requirements are and so on. And I understand it, but I just never got it. It just didn't equate with me ever.
Well, I mean, I respect, I'm in upstate New York. That's where I live. And I have the plumbing company that takes care of my home, right? Sure. They are a substantial company, many trucks on the road. They are what would be considered a self-performing company. That model works excellent in a controlled geography that they can manage and control. Sure. If they can manage and control the individuals under their guidance, right?
Sure.
But we have portfolios of clients that we take care of, way beyond geographies, way beyond certain states or certain regions of the country. And the thought that we are going to compare ourselves to that, no. I look at the gentleman who built my house. I hired him. He was an interior trim specialist. All right. What did he screw up? He screwed up our roof because he's an interior trim specialist.
Sure.
Now, he hired a subcontractor to do the roof, but he didn't know how to manage the roofing contractor. So our world is about managing the technicians that are out in the world, out in the market. And whether we do that in a self-performing tight geography, like my plumbing company here, that is absolutely wonderful at it, or we have a bigger company that has to use many of those companies to satisfy the need. I just think they're labels. People have found labels and they've found paths that have been successful for them, and those paths had labels, so they just take the label to the next task, and it's not always successful.
Sure. It's kind of like the words, this quote is too high. Well, define too high. What does that mean? How? Is it because it's got 4 digits and it's got a comma? And if it had 3 digits, if it was 999 instead of 1020, it would be okay. I mean, but it's just too high. Well, what does that mean? I don't get it.
Yeah.
You're right. You're exactly right. Give me one skill, Joe, that probably wasn't a strength of yours in years past, but you've worked really hard to either make it a strength or at least move the needle on it to where it's better than it was.
Kind of two different things come to mind, because I always say I don't have just one weakness. I have more than one weakness. But there's been 2 things that I've worked on over the past. One was the kind of the higher level financial management. You talked about budgets and quotes and things like that.
Sure.
The higher level financial management of what we do. The more that you get into this, the more that you have to help your client understand the real finances behind this. And I knew that I needed more education on that. So I challenged myself back in, I don't know, I think it was 2016 or something, to go back to school. And went back to school and went in a focus of financial management and entrepreneurship. Got that education, met some great people, mm-hmm. expanded what was then the backside of the middle of my career already. And I was going back to school to learn something new. And right. I think that helped me out immensely. The other thing that comes to mind is certainly technology. There's no way that I can tell you that I've got it all in tow. It's going to change tomorrow. So what are we doing with ourselves to always keep learning on the tech side? I just left a specs advisory board group, 40 of us in Chicago this week. And we're talking about, what are we talking about? Things like AI and robotics and technology. Why? Because we know the world's going in that direction. And what can we do as an industry to keep up with it, to keep learning? There's no stopping. You can't say, that this is my strength. It could be your strength today, but watch out tomorrow. Everything could change. How many of us have seen technology come and go? How many can you name in your career?
Sure.
Technologies, I remember an old story, the first push to talk phone that we had, and you could get any of your PMs or your crew leaders, hit that button on the phone and talk to them. We thought we were just the bomb, right?
I can remember years ago, and this is how old I am, but at Ruby Tuesday, we had a voice phone program called Async. And what it was is everybody had a number, and that's how people communicated to you. Or if the president of Ruby Tuesday wanted to make an announcement to all the directors and higher VPs and so on in the company, they would get on there and put a message, and then it would be almost like a voicemail, but it would go to everybody in the company. And the one I'll remember for the rest of my life since I was in facilities, he went on a trip up in Pennsylvania, and he saw a couple of signs, and where the signs had certain letters that was easy for a bird to put a nest in, there would be a bird nest. And he explained his passion for there will never be another bird nest in Ruby Tuesday as long as he's in charge, and I'll leave out all the other words. And I took that directly as a point to me because I'm the facility guy. I never knew somebody could be that passionate about not having a bird nest, but he was. And I'm went around the country making sure, oh God, get rid of these things, get them, because they'll go up in a day or two. I mean, you get rid of them, they're there, Yeah. And but it was a program. That's how you communicated so long ago. And I think about now, I remember the days of pagers. Everything was a page. I can remember flying, and I flew every week. Leave Tennessee or when I was living in Alabama, fly to Atlanta, run to the payphone, call your office, check in, tell them where you're going to be the rest of the day, and then this is my hotel number when I get there at night. If anybody, it just, the changes and all that is just, and now as you continue, to go forward, you're right. That's two excellent points. To go back and learn in the middle of your career is because people don't want to say that. Nobody wants to say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Nobody does. That's one of the reasons I do this podcast with people is a lot for facility managers because they don't want to raise their hand and say, I don't know how to do this. But if they can listen to the show and something comes out of there that's a really good idea, they can go, hey, I could try that. And nobody ever knows the difference that you didn't know,
Sure.
And you don't have to raise your hand, kind of like in class or something. You're just learning by listening. And I think that's really important. Those are great points. You mentioned specs. You've been involved in Connects. You've been involved in RIFMA for years. Why are all those important for you?
I don't ever put any one of them above any other. Why, to me, why they as a group are important, it's purely about relationships. Our industry is built on service. Service is built by understanding one another, empathizing with one another, being genuine with one another, being forthright, just being able to deliver on what you promise. It's all about the relationships. And where do you find those? My suggestion, and I do this in mentoring, is don't just have one place. Have multiple places where you can go and learn from others, and don't be a detractor from hey, well, this one's better than this one or whatever. I mean, I support them all because they're all trying. They're trying to build relationships. They're trying to build communities. My suggestion is we're all actually a much bigger one community. All of those organizations together. So we can support an individual organization. We can volunteer in an organization that we like. But remember that the industry is bigger than any one organization. And you're going to benefit if you cross over into these different worlds. You're going to learn more things. You're going to meet new people. You're going to have suggestions that you've never even heard of. And that's fantastic. One of my big wins is taking a client and introducing them to a new group and having them network with other individuals that are doing the same thing that they are, maybe just in a different field. Or maybe it's a competitor of theirs in real life, in their portfolios. But in FM, there's no competitors. And I've met some great people along the way who are with these different organizations. And the most successful of those individuals are the ones that say, hey, our brands are competitors, but we're not competitors. We're facility people. We're here to help each other figure this out. And actually, you could help me more than probably the next guy because you have a very like building. You have a like clientele. And we could learn from one another. And there's been some great relationships and some great, I guess some of them are communities, some of them are committees, some of them are just different labels that these organizations put on things. But when you can get those people together and working on similar needs, it's amazing what you can accomplish. But my directive is learn from them all.
Sure.
You try to listen to them all. That's
great. I can remember a long time ago being asked from someone in the C-suite at Ruby's, why do you go to RIFMA per se? And I said, well, I go because I'll tell you, sitting at the bar the night before the board of directors meeting is the greatest night of my life because I hear from all the people who do what I do. And first and foremost, they have the same problems I have, which makes me feel better. And second of all, if I'll sit there and listen long enough, I'm going to learn something. Somebody is doing something better than I am, and I'm going to figure it out by listening and then borrowing that thought. And if I do run into a problem, I don't have any issue picking up the phone and calling them saying, I have a smell in the bathroom I cannot get rid of. This is all the things that I've done. What did I miss? And they listen to you for like 5 minutes and go, did you do this?
Yeah.
No, try that. Yep. I could look all day and never find that, you know? And then I think, as you mentioned, relationships, and I found this in my all of 4 days of being in retirement. But when people have spoken, there have been some folks who said, hey, years ago when I started at whatever conference it was and so on, you and I spoke and I asked you questions and you answered them and you treated me not. Why would you not treat people nice? But, you know, you took the time to do this and so on. Things I didn't even remember. It's just having a conversation. You mentioned earlier being a talker. I'm a talker. I'm a relationship person. But that makes you feel good that, you know, the opportunity was there to help someone at that time when you were just having conversation or talking or whatever, but it meant something. And I think that's a big part of whatever group you're in and so on, is that relationships, the ability to know and trust. And my question always was, when someone said, I want to talk to you about doing new business, I don't need a dog and pony. I don't want you to come and put up 40 slides and tell me you're the greatest thing. And I got all that. Okay. Here's what really matters to me. Tell me who you work for. That's all I need to know. Just tell me who you work for, because I'll know them and I'll go call them. And if you are what you tell me, that's what they'll say. And then we skip a whole bunch of time and we'll start talking about opportunity. You know, that's what matters, because I trust them. And if it's someone that I'm using that they want to talk to, they'll call me, you know. But how much easier that is that, okay, we'll try one. We'll see what happens. 6 months later, we'll try another one. No, if you're that good, let's talk, you know.
That's right.
That's great. What 2 critical traits does a person need to be successful at laser?
I think, first of all, going to go back to know how to say no.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably top of the list. Second would be, I would call it, be curious. I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso at all, if you've seen any of that, but he does it. There's a great bit about him. You should look it up sometime, about being curious and asking questions. I think that we're here to support those needs, those challenges that come up. But one of the greatest things that we can say to our team is, when you're giving an answer, anticipate what the next question is going to be. Say the answer to yourself. And if it begs a question, it's not a good answer.
Sure.
It's not a thorough answer. It's causing your client more grief, because now they got to ask you another question because you weren't thorough enough. So I think you have to be curious. You have to ask those questions. You have to make sure that you're there to help them answer as many questions as possible without them trying to struggle. So I think that there's another one, a third, and that is, it's just honesty in business. It's just, you know, follow principles. You know, I always say to people, you're going to make mistakes today. You're going to make mistakes. What do I want you to do? I want you to own it. Own your mistake. Empathize with that client and apologize for the mistake, and then fix it. That's it. It's simple, 3 steps, you know, own it, empathize, and fix it. And I think that that's a critical trait for anyone in our business, including myself. That's what I want to make sure that I do every day when I screw up, and I will today somewhere. Great
points, all 3. Just to deliver what you promise. You know, do what you say you're going to do. You know, if you ask me to be on a job site today and I can't be there, the answer is not, yeah, I'll figure it out and I'll get there, unless you know for sure you're going to be there. You know,
Yeah.
because that puts you in a bad spot. You have to answer to people. The whole thing just falls apart. It's do what you say.
It's 100%.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. Give me a great lesson learned for you in this business.
I had in Disney, in my first job, I had a mentor. It was an Eastern European woman who was a tough boss. But she told me something, and I carry it with me every single day. And she's like, nothing is more important than the people in the business. Get to know your people. Really get to know them, understand them. They got all sorts of, she used to say, they got all sorts of human things going on every day. And are you adding to the crap that they have to deal with? Or are you trying to help them through it? And I would watch her, and she would not use discipline. She managed hundreds of people and dozens of restaurant managers like myself. And she would listen, she would ask questions, and she would figure out what you needed to be more successful. That was her bigger picture, she used to call it. And it was all about people. Learn what they need, understand your people. And that's what I think about every day. It's like a bigger picture for me, is that, you know, that behind every need, there's a person, and they've got all things going on. How can I help them be successful? I'm not going to get anywhere by telling a person today, you didn't do a good job. And if you don't do a good job tomorrow, then you're not going to be here. What does that get me? And I've shortened that down, right? But
Sure.
But what does that get you? She ultimately called it, though. She said, check yourself, though. She goes, there is a theory of 10. And that theory of 10 is that you're going to hire 10 people, Joe. 2 of those people are going to be rock stars. They're probably going to be better than you. 5 or 6 of those people need you. They need you today. They need you tomorrow. They need you to understand them and give them resources. And that's the core of your company. That's the core of your business. And she goes, and 2 people, Joe, you shouldn't have hired those 2.
That's great.
And she said, that will never change. Every business, anywhere, you tell me where they don't really have the theory of 10. So for her, it was about people. She taught me a lot about that. And that was really what I take every day. And that is many, many years ago.
That is an awesome point. Awesome point. Great. What do you want people to respect most about the job you do?
Just a few years ago, I had an individual that I was networking with who really was not, it's part of the facilities industry, but he's in an energy management capacity, and he wasn't a direct relationship. And he said, Joe, I'm putting you on a list. And I said, what do you mean? I'm putting me on a list. He goes, you're a good human. And I said, I got to use that. I got to use that in my future, because you've just simplified things for me. If I'm doing some things in interacting with you and you think I'm a good human, boy, there's nothing more satisfying than someone feeling that way about you. And I thought to myself, yeah, I need to do more of that. Whatever I have done in that relationship with that person, I need to figure out what are those things, and I need to keep doing that, because I think that that's our bigger picture also, is that, come on, let's leave our egos at the door.
Sure.
Right? What do we do that's, all that critical in the world, right? the best thing we can be is a good human every day.
Sure.
Figure out how to do it. So I think that if I just continue to do that, I think people pick up on that, and then I get to work with a bunch of good humans.
Sure.
Because good humans are like attract each other.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, awesome point. Awesome point. My last question, what's your go-to saying? What's on your wall? What do you use when things don't go right? What's the one thing that you keep coming back to?
So the John Lennon song, and the lyrics that go, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." I have had that on my wall for decades. And I think about it, I look at it, and life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. Let's not forget about the moments that we're in right now. The moment, the opportunity that I have right now with you, talking with you, there isn't anything more important in my day than this conversation right now, because this is what you and I are experiencing in life right now.
Sure.
And we get to like share these stories and share these thoughts and things, and how great is that? And stuff's still happening around us. Stuff is still piling up here and there, but if you don't take each of these little moments, time goes by, and it's like life doesn't wait.
Sure.
Right? So
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if John Lennon initially coined it, but again, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Super answer. Super. Well, that's my questions for today, Joe. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time on FM Corner. Hope everyone listens again. It's brought to you by WCE. Thanks so much for their support, and really appreciate you taking the time to kind of give some knowledge to folks. And the fact that you're mentoring and teaching people is great, because really there's almost nothing better. It's almost like your kids, but when you mentor someone and you help someone and they become successful or more successful than they already are, and you had a small piece in that, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
It is, my friend. Thank you so much. I love the conversation.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.